We will have a section. This meeting is being recorded. We will have a section for questions at the end, so please hold your questions till the end. If you do have any questions that you want to write down, you're also welcome to type them into the chat as well. We'll have one of our board members keeping an eye on the chat. We'll be doing questions, like I said, at the end. And let's see what else. Oh, also, please keep yourself muted, just so we can keep background noise to a minimum. One of our board members may end up muting you if some background noise ends up happening before the question section. But otherwise, I think that's all, and I'm turning it back over to Alan.
Cool. Yeah, on today's agenda, we'll talk a little bit about who our board is and who we are, a little bit about our mission. We'll go over a lot of the work that we've done from nationals to insurance to liability, and talk about some of our wins before we open the floor for questions. So we're USPK. We're a 501c nonprofit organization that is composed of volunteers from across the US. There are volunteers from our committees all the way up through our board that share their time and energy and efforts into building an organization that is for the growth and development of parkour. Right now, our board is with 6 people. I serve myself as the chair. There's Corey from Parkour Visions out in Seattle, Mike Jones in, I believe, Austin, Texas, Blake out of Boston with Parkour Generations. We have Cozy out in Vancouver, and he's independent. We also have Mel McQueen, I guess representing Apex Movement out in Colorado. Recently, Melissa Way stepped away for maternity leave, and she represents also PK Gen out in Pennsylvania. I think our biggest step this year was hiring a communications director. We're looking at the work that we're doing. It's often unseen and even unheard of from the insurance that we've been working diligently behind, from individual to business, also like with nationals. So this year we hired Jess Chan out of Vancouver. Many of you may know her from Road Chase Tag as a friendly face, and many other things on Instagram with parkour. But in hiring the communications director, our goal was to basically educate the public around what non-governing bodies do and the work that we represent. I think it takes a lot of communications visually and also like hearing and communications to be able to establish a lot of trust and transparency for all of the work that we've been doing. It includes like engaging the community from being on site at nationals with Cozy, Melissa, and Jess. It also takes us to Art of Retreat with the board from Corey, myself, Melissa Way, and Blake, having a bunch of different conversations. And I think this is where a lot of the connections come into play around USPK in terms of highlighting our community, listening to what the needs are, and also getting feedback for the work that we can kind of improve upon. I'll let Jess introduce herself really quick and give a friendly hello. Jess?
Hey everybody, I'm Jess. For those of you who've not met me, I've been doing parkour for about 4 years, and I've just been going hard on competitions like World Chase Tag and Speed Parkour recently. So I'm super passionate about everything that USPK is doing. And since USPK, all the board members are working really hard, just kind of behind the scenes, putting their head down, doing all the things to build all of these projects that we're going to be talking about. My job is basically just to keep you guys all in the loop through social media, through website, email marketing, and everything like that. Whenever you're speaking to anyone, it's usually going to be me. So let me know if there's any questions that you guys have or any suggestions. We are looking to be more transparent moving forward, and looking forward to serving you guys.
If you're ever wanting to ask questions or seeing a lot of the Instagram stories, Jess is behind I guess the phone doing all of the chit chat and doing all the follow up. So we really appreciate Jess taking the the hard efforts and I think the big picture of like the work that we're doing and funneling or filtering it down to little bits and pieces that everyone's able to see. So feel free to always shoot us a message via Instagram. I'll let Corey talk about our spot insurance.
Yeah, so we've partnered with a company called Spot. So Spot Insurance partners with sports governing bodies. They've also partnered with ski resorts as well. But basically what their offering is to provide personal insurance specific to the sport that we do. So this is not the same as like healthcare or anything like that, but it's basically like if you get injured doing parkour, you can actually use Spot's offering to pay for that injury. An example of that being like, shoot, when I tore my ACL a couple of years ago, even though I had health insurance, it was like still $6,000 on top of it. So even if you do have health insurance, Spot's insurance will cover that only specific to parkour injuries. So that $6,000 would have been entirely covered under Spot if I had been a member at that time. This is an offering that we provide to our individual members. Alan, if you could jump to the next slide. We do have 2 tiers of membership that are specific to Spot. One is the practitioner and the other one is the professional. You can see here the main difference being the accident coverage, medical insurance accident coverage, again, specific to parkour. The practitioner one does have a $1,000 deductible, which is like the max amount you would pay out, versus the professional has a $0 deductible. And you can also go to our website if you're curious to learn more about that at uspk.org/join to see some more specifics on that. And turn it back to you, Alan.
Thanks, Corey. I'll have Cozy chime in on any updates around the Olympics and I guess competitive parkour around the world.
Sounds good. I'll also just add actually to Corey's last point, another recent partnership that we've done is with the prehab guys. So in total, not only are we offering insurance, but we are partnering with the prehab guys, which is a essentially 3 doctors of physical therapy that create, you know, a library app that's just full of different exercises for prehab and rehab. So what we're trying to do with the insurance and those types of partnerships is make it so that like the longevity of parkour is there. Obviously, injuries do happen. I've also had gone through a couple ACLs myself, so I've definitely been taking advantage of like the insurance and the prehab app to kind of get me back into shape. So what we're trying to do is kind of paint a broader picture there for longevity within parkour. For the FIG kind of Olympic updates, you know, I think ultimately this is a good thing, but parkour was not included in the LA 2028 Olympics. I know some folks were hopeful about that, but it was clear from the sports that were chosen that it's very much a political kind of money-driven decision. Baseball, flag football, cricket, some of these ones that already have a decent amount of money into them. And there was also a decent amount of reports of internal strife and politics within FIG. Because they would need to drop one of their current disciplines like trampolining or rhythmic gymnastics in order to add parkour. And there was a lot of dissent even within their own ranks for making that happen. We do have regular conversations with USAG just to kind of check in and see where they're at. We had a discussion with Lily, the CEO, in September, which, you know, we want to keep that red phone kind of diplomacy open to hear what they're up to, if they are looking to actually support the sport in a grassroots way. But unfortunately, as has been the case before, there doesn't really seem to be any kind of greater vision for parkour around helping events or really anything outside of kind of like taking the top tier athletes and putting them in kind of like a competitive circuit that still so far hasn't really shown a ton of promise. And has a very convoluted system for kind of feedback at this point. We've talked to several of the athletes who have gone and competed at the USAG or the FIG events in like Bulgaria. And most of the time the feedback is like, it's very much through one particular person. per country, and then they take a 4-year cycle to even change the rules. So where does that leave us? There is the possibility of speed being demoed at 2024 in Paris and LA 2028. Watanabe himself has come out and said that parkour is not, the goal is not to get parkour into the Olympics, but they're still very much involved, I think, because of the money. But at this point, parkour is still listed as a subdiscipline on USAG and FIG's website, but it is not getting any of the USOPC funding, which is one of the things that we asked USAG about. If they are getting funding, where's that being put? FIG themselves, which is the international org, compared to USAG being the national org, FIG funded the top 5 athletes, receiving like helping them with flights and hotels to get out there. Parkour Earth is still kind of in a battle to fight for recognition with the IOC, but all this is just to say that we have a larger window to create viable circuits within parkour, experiment with some of the formats and judging. And you yourselves can be a part of this by joining our judging or athletes committees. So we really encourage you, if you're super passionate about seeing parkour, competitive parkour go to the next step, like we have the window of opportunity to make that happen. And if we do a good enough job, you know, it'll just be apparent that parkour people can probably decide their future a little bit better than say a trampolinist who is the USAG representative at this point for parkour, that doesn't really know the sport as well. So really, we'd love to see your participation here. And our focus is basically on making our national circuit with USPK and combining that with SPL to be for athletes and by athletes. So we'll kick it back over to Alan.
Thanks, Cozy. Awesome. Well, let's move on to nationals. I'll pass it on to Mel McQueen here.
Hi, I'm Mel, and I'm doing double duty right now as the USPK event coordinator and a mom, so I apologize for any background noise. We were really excited this last year to run our first competitive season featuring all 3 disciplines and setting up the regional circuit around the country that was hosting qualifiers and then regional championships that fed to the national championship we held in July. You can see the participation numbers there. We were beyond thrilled to get as many women show up, that led to us being able to have full categories and get full podiums up for all 3 disciplines to SPL, which was really exciting for us. We're well underway towards the 2024 season right now, and hoping to get all 6 regions hosting a full season, building into the 2024 national championship, and then into SPL. We will be putting out the nationals announcement and a request for proposal for gyms to host the national championship next year. So any of the sort of competition related things, I'm the person to reach out to and talk with.
Thanks, Mel. Awesome. Pass it on to Corey around our progress report for this year.
Yeah, so here's just kind of a quick overview of some of the other things that we've been doing. We've been assisting with funding for other cultural events, as we very much know parkour is not just about the competition. It's equally as important the jams and conferences and retreats. So we assist there. We've really been working on creating some inclusive practices for events and competitions as well. And sorry, we jumped around. There we go. Let me see if there's anything else I want to highlight. I also want to highlight that we did spend some time. We do have to create access to resources for public parkour parks. Blake and I hosted some meetings, providing some of our insight there for locals who are interested in getting a parkour park in their city. All right, thanks, Alan.
Thanks. All right, pass on to Blake around our general liability insurance.
Thanks, Alan. So if any of you are familiar with parkour in the insurance industry, you know that this has been a struggle for a long time, almost since the beginning of the parkour industry here in the US. Given our country's litigious nature, ensuring parkour can be a bit difficult. And one of the big things that we've heard from many of our members and organizational members is that they want better insurance. And so it's a huge project that we've been working on for more than the last year. We're making progress. It's slow but very steady, and we're almost at the point where we're ready to announce stuff. But the big thing is really making parkour insurance accessible to a lot of the smaller organizations that need it and aren't able to get it. And also, and the other big thing is making it affordable to the organizations that are the kind of stalwart members of our community, but are being priced out of the industry and have everybody's basically on a kind of secondary insurance market because parkour is not seen as a regular discipline or sporting discipline. And I think one of the big things for us is collecting data, showing that this is a legit industry, and that there's a huge amount of potential for these insurance companies that really just look at the numbers, and showing them which numbers to look at, as well as why those numbers are meaningful. So I think for the big one for us is also making sure that we're raising the standards across the board to make sure that access to parkour instruction and is safe, and that companies have standards that they're required to keep up, just like any other sporting body. So one of the big things for us is making sure that safe sport and sexual abuse and molestation protections are standardized across the industry, to make sure that we're protecting our young people. But also the ability to have bolt-ons or add-ons to policies to cover things like trampolines, foam pits, all the other cool stuff that happens in these organizations. But also the ability to teach outside and to run school workshops and demonstrations and not have a very complicated, convoluted, and subpar policy that's available for gyms and other organizations, because we realize that the parkour community here in the US is a very diverse, and it's hard to put us all in one box. And we need to find a policy that works better and accommodates all of our needs. So if you're interested in helping, or if you want to be part of that, we'd love some additional help. If you run an organization, scan the QR code, send us your info, and we can add it to the info that we're aggregating for the industry. Because that helps us bring additional numbers to the number crunchers on the insurance side of things. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Blake. Awesome. So looking ahead to 2024, I'll invite both Corey and Cozy to hop in with me. But looking ahead to 2024, on our books is being able to offer more fiscal sponsorship for many of the parkour events that aren't just necessarily like competitions. It could be as far as like American Rendezvous, Obsidian Gathering, etc. Blake and I are also looking to run our first business conference. I think right now we're planning for the spring. Details to be determined. Obviously, Mel had talked about continuing the work around the national competition circuit. I think one of the big things, and I want to give a quick shout out to our judges and athletes advisory committee. That includes like Peyton Hanna, Christopher Hollingsworth, Frank Mejia, Kai Garcia, Mel, and myself. But as Mel had mentioned, our nationals will be hosted for July 11th to 14th, and we'll be opening a bid process for hosting or acting as the venue shortly. And then also continue, as Blake had just talked about, offering general liability insurance to USPK members. Cozy or Corey, anything else on our radar for the upcoming year? y'all like to
Yeah, I
share?
just want to. I'd love to jump in and just share. I personally get really excited about fiscal sponsorship. So what and what that is, right? So fiscal sponsorship is when a nonprofit kind of extends its nonprofit arm over like a project or an event. So that allows the project to do things that normally a nonprofit would only be able to do, such as like apply for grants, provide tax donations to anybody who donates to the event. It also provides a bit more like legitimacy for an informal event that doesn't want to like start a company. So if they like basically like they have restricted funds within USPK that they do the fundraising for or ticket sales for, and then they have access to that. We sort of are like the back end like accounting for that. And we'll be also providing like event insurance and eventually general liability insurance for the event too. If there's any like need for permits for the event or venue rentals, like that's something USPK can support with through that like assigned restricted fund. So really, really cool thing that nonprofits offer. We're excited to roll that out.
Yeah, and I'll just hop in with one more thing, and that's partially related to fiscal sponsorship, but trying to bring in additional sponsors and partners to the parkour industry. That's going to be a big focus of mine over the next coming years, is to just try and expand our network a bit. I think it's easy to look inside your own community for a lot of this stuff, but the reason that a lot of the other national governing bodies are able to fund some of the events that they are is because they are dipping into the commercial sponsorship space, or they're able to apply for grants. And so we're looking to kind of expand that a bit more, like the partnerships with like Spot and the prehab guys to, cover medical expenditures, as well as just kind of like hit some endemic sponsors of gear potentially that many of you are already using, or adjacent kind of products like that. So our goal is also to, with that, look a little bit externally as well and provide some more educational materials. I think again, it's easy to look within the community, but we also still want to be a welcoming face, I would say, to folks that are new to parkour, as there's an entire generation that is just getting into parkour and ninja gyms all over the place and kind of looking for a little bit more guidance. So hopefully providing that to them as well as parents as we continue on. Back to Alan.
Thanks, Cozy. And I kind of want to echo along the partnerships in that we're approaching a general meetings in the next week or two with Parkour Earth as well. So I think what I'm looking forward to in 2024 is continuing our work and collaborations with non-governing bodies across the world that are looking to build parkour within their own countries, but through a united front, such as Parkour Earth. I'll pass this over to Corey for Giving Tuesday, which is today.
Yeah, so today is Giving Tuesday. It's an annual holiday, I guess like tradition, but basically an opportunity, as we are in the holiday season, to have some opportunities to give back, especially to a nonprofit that you support. So this is also the kickoff of our first ever end of the year fundraising campaign. We are looking to raise $1,000 by the end of the year. So on top of that, your donation will be matched. Our board is providing a matching donation to that, which is really cool. So if you are somebody who got excited about what we have been doing and what we are going to be doing, what we're doing for 2024, please consider giving a gift to support. It is tax deductible donation, as we're a 501c3. And anything makes a difference, even if it's $5-10. If you want to give a bit more of a sustainable gift as well, and aren't able to give a large amount at one time, that's totally fine. Like a $5 or $10 or $25 a month donation is also an offering too, if you want to become a sustained donor with us. So check it out at uspk.org/give. Thanks all.
Awesome. Thanks for everyone's time. We wanted as a board to kind of open the floor for any questions or comments for us to address and kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of the work that we've been doing. So you have a moment, feel free to, I guess, raise your hand. I'll let Blake moderate from here.
No questions, no raised hands, nothing?
Hey guys, Robbie Corbett. I got a question about the one thing that was abolish one size fits all models for instructor certifications, USG and WFPF. What exactly does that mean, to abolish one size fits all?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. Essentially, what we want is to be able to allow, we recognize at this point it's pretty early in the development of a sport to say that there's just a perfect way to teach parkour. And we've seen throughout kind of working with other gyms, seeing that their certifications live up to a basic set of standards, and that is kind of what should be created first is in general an idea of like minimum requirements for safety, sexual abuse, molestation prevention, things like safe sport, and leveling that out across the industry without telling people exactly like there's one true way to like teach parkour, because essentially there are a variety of different certifications that we've seen that cover those basics that teach in very different ways. And so that's typically what we mean by that, is we have a certification review board that has taken usually, I think, 2 to 3 certs minimum at this point. That, you know, they've been in the space a very, very long time, learning parkour, learning different methods of teaching it. And they are able to look at the different certifications that submit for review and be able to decide like, hey, these meet the minimum qualifications. They're teaching parkour in a safe, practical way. And that also factors into insurance, of course, as well, because we're saying that they meet minimum safety standards, as well as if there are any Olympic hopes ever, you know, you also need to be safe sport compliant, et cetera. So.
Cool. Yeah. As a person who's pretty experienced with certifications, I think, yeah, that's super important to take into consideration what the goal of that certification is, where that certification is derived from, and what it has to do in order to tick the boxes necessary for others to either approve it or recognize it or insure it. So that's cool. You guys have a board of doing that. Is there info on that, on who's on that board and what certifications they've taken and when and things like that?
Yeah, I believe we've talked about it in a couple social media posts, but we'll be posting like basically we had kind of our first edition of that. Like if we were to just throw all the parkour certs at this board all at once, that would be a lot of work. So we basically had a kind of a pioneer project that was started, and the results of that are just wrapping up. So there'll be another additional blog post and social media post, not only introducing those board members, but talking about kind of the process behind it. And even to create the rubric, there were a significant amount of hands involved besides just the board. Again, most of them all practice names that would probably be recognizable to most folks that have been in the community for a bit. So yeah, essentially to answer your question, there'll be a little bit more coming in the next few weeks, I would say, or early 2024.
Awesome. Look forward to hearing about that.
Awesome. We've got Garrett and then Christopher.
Hey everybody, Garrett, he, him. Sorry, I can't be on video today. Thanks to the whole board for a really awesome presentation. That was really nice to get these updates. I was curious, and sorry to immediately go back to Cozy, but welcome anybody else's answer as well too. It was really very relieved to hear around 2028 for LA Olympics with parkour not being directly involved. What do you see as, whether it be USPK specifically or organizational members, the ways that organizations can help build a little bit more of that momentum towards a being seen and not as a sport that can be taken over? Like obviously, you spoke to the competition side of things, but are there any other activities, like actively speaking, that you see we can do to be seen not easily taken over?
Yeah, I think that's a fairly easy one, and it very much speaks to, you know, our our motto, our logos, et cetera, which is just, you know, being united, talking to each other. I think there's a lot of things that have happened in the competition space that have been really good. I think we're not inventing anything new by hosting a professional competition circuit, right? What we are trying to do is unite several different regions and make more of that kind of pyramid structure, in order to, you know, essentially show that like there's a model for this, and that um, I think, yeah, the best way to put it is that the uh, experiment, I think, at this point, that locally, that's what we want, is like either join the circuit for the pro side of things, or being able to have recreational experimental kind of formats. We've talked about doing things like, you know, speed relays, for instance, or ascent descent courses, with the proper safety precautions, etc. There's still a ton of green space to figure out what parkour competitions look like. We are obviously pursuing more of the kind of like SPL format, or the format that SPL I think made very famous was speed skill style, and they are viable. They work. That's kind of why we're sticking with them. But we also want to see a lot of experimentation from the local gym. So, you know, joining us, joining the competition circuit is obviously a great way to be able to provide that feedback. Part of our process is having, you know, regional gyms contribute to, kind of a regional board, and that has a coordinator that then feeds back up into the larger circuit. So we're trying to make this a very like democratic process, so that people feel that they're heard, that they can have a two-way street with how the competition circuit is shaping up. But locally, I would just say, you know, it's really helpful to experiment with those different formats, try things out, and kind of report back the success. That's super helpful, is just to see people trying different things. We've seen, you know, stick v trick kind of different formats. So I love seeing the creativity, and I just think that the more of that we see, and the more united we are, the harder it's going to be to kind of like take us over at this point. The last point I'll just make is that we've been able, because of how deep I think our network runs at this point within the community, it's very apparent that gymnastics mailing list, even within USAG, is, you know, a small handful of gyms. It's not the entire spread, and that very much they are consistently kind of caught looking a little foolish, like with what they're pitching. So I think it's helpful. Like, we've had a lot of gyms reach out to us and ask like, hey, how should I respond to this? And we want to allow gyms kind of the flexibility to respond how they see fit. But at the same time, I think it's helpful that when folks have been kind of reaching out and just saying, hey, I got pinged about this. Again, that's part of that united front, is basically being able to know kind of what's happening, and, you know, get your feelings on it. If you feel like, hey, they're making some good points here, but I don't like this over here, that's really helpful for us as well. So, I'm happy to kick it over if anyone else has thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll add something in, Adam. So running the competition circuit, I agreed to come in and do this as a parent of an athlete. And my background was actually with USA Climbing, where I saw for my son what that did for him growing up, and that it has helped him focus and get through school. And, you know, certainly competing in climbing doesn't mean that every rock climber has to do competitive rock climbing. And now I've switched over to support my daughter on her parkour journey, and I see this very much the same thing. So, you know, by organizing a national circuit and having us build up through the skill, speed, and style format through that doesn't take away from gym competitions. I just hosted a stick competition at Apex that wasn't a USPK competition. We're going to be doing a speed clash at Apex that isn't a USPK competition. But trying to build up this chain for those kids and adults who want that opportunity to work through a national to international level. And at some point, we do have to limit down just specifically for that chain what that competition is going to look like. And we are at a super exciting point to be working on that. I've been so happy to work with the Athlete and Judges Advisory Committee on the rule book we're going to be putting out soon. We've had tremendous conversation amongst all of us. And then we've posted questions on Instagram and gotten feedback from athletes on Instagram that's feeding how we're shaping things. And it'll be a document that gets updated every year as the sport changes, as we get more practice and see how things are developing. But it doesn't shut down at all the opportunities to explore and find other ways that we can have fun with parkour.
Thank you both.
Christopher.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, so first off, thank you guys so much for hosting this town hall. It's really, really cool to see just what everyone's been working on and kind of the future that USPK has been working towards. I think that this is some really much needed infrastructure in the community, and it's great. And my question is centered around the certification. So, and this may be something that USPK doesn't address, or it may be something that you've already talked about, and I would love to just get your thoughts on this. I would love to see some sort of standardization where when a parent goes to a gym, they know that the instructors have been trained, in child management skills, group management skills, one-on-one skills, that sort of thing. They know what to do when a child is misbehaving in class, such that they can interact with them in a way that doesn't diminish them, but encourages them and kind of creates these social skills that are super important. They know that when they come into the gym, the equipment that they're using is standardized and it is something that isn't going to break. There's not going to be some sort of like negligence that happens in the facility that leads to somebody getting hurt. And you go to restaurants and you see like, oh, where's the food quality? Is it's okay or it's great? And you see like the smiley face on the side. I would love to see something like that just tells customers and parents and people like, you will find these qualities at this location, kind of creating like and the reason why I think that's so important is because parkour is such a brand new sport, and I've been traveling for the last decade to various gyms, like improving programs and things like that, and across the board there's nothing that's standardized. You're training coaches, then you're working on equipment, then you're working on the internal documentation. And so I would just love to see something in the certification that addresses like the whole of it and can create like a consistent like branding, for lack of a better expression, for parkour. So that way, like parkour has a positive association to social skills, emotional skills, really powerful equipment that doesn't break and things like that. So I'm just curious, is the certification that you're working on kind of addressing the multifaceted nature of this, or is it just focusing on coaching skills, or is it just like, I'm just curious like what you see there?
I can hop in on this. So I think, Christopher, thanks for bringing that up. I think we're tackling that in two ways. The first way is the certification review committee, and that is looking at the certifications themselves and what they're covering, making sure that they're covering the key aspects of the sport, and also making sure that there's minimum standards on those. So realizing that there are very different certifications present here in the US, and we want to make sure that we're both highlighting and also offering that full diversity of offerings. But then I think the other piece and kind of that happy face or food rating that you get when you go into a restaurant, that would be addressed to the insurance side of things, because that's really where we can have that ability to both help and support our business members, but also to make sure that there's these minimum standards for equipment, for kind of coach certification and training, making sure that everybody has first aid, CPR, making sure that all coaches have the sexual abuse and molestation training and safe sport training, as well as also making sure that our community of organizational members is abiding and kind of recognizing these common values, which really doesn't exist at this point in the US. And I think there's a lot of great organizations out there, and there's a lot of people doing really awesome stuff, but there's not really a common kind of standard for these organizations that are doing this voluntarily. And I think one of the goals of having a policy that goes across all the organizational members is that we would be able to say, as a common community, these are the values that we have across our whole community.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that really touches on it and kind of answers that, and I appreciate that. Because and I guess maybe this will boil down to marketing too, but if there's one thing that I've learned in any time that you distinguish something, what something is, you very much so first have to distinguish what it isn't. And I would love, to see some marketing around like, what you're not going to get at our parkour gym is like coaches that don't care about like your emotional development. You're not going to get your kids getting hurt from like a lack of a progression system, I want to actively combat and give my energy and resources towards a company that is calling out the unsafe practices of I'm going to call them I wish there was a better expression for this for parkour, but the McDojos. They pop up these parkour programs and facilities, oftentimes in the corner of like a gymnastics gym or something like that, call it parkour. And then what's happening is, you get a bunch of kids busting their ass, doing unsafe practices with a bunch of coaches that have absolutely no training whatsoever, or maybe they just went through like a 2-hour certification or something like that, slap them with a certification. I want to actively do violence towards that industry. And so, I would just love to see that.
We're definitely not going to advocate for doing violence or against anything. And I think we're very much about kind of giving recognition to the organizations that are doing great things, as opposed to kind of calling out the organizations that are doing things that are maybe things that are not so great. But I think by really promoting and marketing, as you say, the organizations that are doing things right, we can have this kind of shared raising of the standards, and hopefully that'll inspire other organizations to step up and level up, and make sure that those standards are kept across the board. Because I think if we can show that the standard for a parkour organization is having quality care, having quality instruction, having quality equipment, then that makes it so that is the standard, as opposed to this amorphous, ambiguous, like, you jump off things, that's parkour.
Yes.
And I think we're
I get it. And that's a super amicable approach.
Yep. And we want to make sure that we're professionalizing and raising the industry across the board.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your answer. I really appreciate it.
Robbie, it looks like you got your hand up.
Hey guys, as a person who's been kind of in the parkour space for quite some time in levels of competition, certification, a pro athlete myself, film industry, competed at the first American Art of Motion, judged the second, assistant stunt coordinator on MTV's Ultimate Parkour Challenge, just name a few things. One thing I think as what I'd like to think of myself as a leader in the sport in a different way than most people, but one thing I think I try to always do is speak amicably. Sorry, I'm having trouble with that word for some reason. Amicably about others and other things that are going on. And as a person who's in their 6th annual competitive parkour competition within the United States, I just wanted to ask here and see from the board itself and things like that, because last year we ran into a problem with some gyms we reached out to work together, and they came back to us saying that they're not allowed because in some capacity they're working with USPKA. And obviously, if somebody has a job or is employed or it's like a conflict of interest like that or something, I can totally understand those kind of situations. But it seemed like in these cases, without saying names or specific things, that wasn't the case, where I didn't feel by asking if they could and them showing the first the excitement to participate, you know, as a judge or coming over to one of the events we were hosting and bringing their students or their community, you know, it was first very positive, but then once, you know, the callback came of figuring out more details, and apparently, you know, this side, the USPK, kind of was the kind of voice that told them that they can't. So one thing I was trying to just show and be on this call is, one, you know, get to know you guys more, you guys get to know me, but also try to say that if anybody's ever come to any of the events I've put on or been the head of and said, hey, I work with USPKA, I just say that's great. If they say, we want to do a USPK something, what do you think? I say, go do it. So I just wanted to see, or, you know, put that out there and make sure that that was said and just known that we have people who judge our competitions that also go judge FIGs. It's not that I'm pro FIG by any means, but I'm also not anti-stopping anybody else from helping the sport grow. If they've worked with me and I've had a positive experience with them, I think it's only great that they go take other experiences and share their positivity in somebody else's potentially event or space or things like that, and not try to keep them solely for my event or things like that. So I just want, when we're talking about building the community or working together, I think the sport is in a small place, and it's good if we can work together. Like, there's many people here that I see that have either come to competitions I've put on, certifications I've put on, or phone calls with many people here and things like that. So I just wanted to share that and say, you know, that's something that with USA Parkour or WFPF, or if you just want to say Robbie Corbett, however you want to do it, I think if there was more cross-pollination in the right ways of sharing judges, athletes, ideas, that would probably be the best thing for the sport. And just try to always think and speak positively about each other, even if we're in private or public.
Hi, Robbie. I'll start with this one. There is definitely no policy from us or coming from me that gyms cannot do both, and we would expect gyms to do both. I'll start by saying that my daughter has competed twice in the USA Parkour Cup local competitions and qualifiers. I've been at all the ones here at Flow Vault. We've invited, I have a great relationship with Will, and I just am using Flow Vault as a reference since they're a gym that hosts a lot for you guys in our area. You know, great relationship with the gym. I work with Will. We invited one of their coaches to be a judge at nationals for style, but there was a timing conflict and they couldn't. So 100% that message is not coming from us and the top. So if you're hearing of it getting said to places, if you want to ping me or reach out to me, I can check in with regional coordinators or gyms and find out where it's coming from. But definitely not our policy. And I couldn't agree more that this is a small sport and we all have to be in this together, supporting each other. So definitely not our philosophy, and it's definitely not coming from us up at the top. So sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, awesome. That's good to hear. And just so we're clear, that person didn't say names or things, and it was last season. So I figured I'd bring it up because I know things have changed with you guys and things have changed with us. So wanted to make sure that, you know, I don't know if you guys have policies like that, just so, you know, if we are aware, that's cool. If you don't, that's great to hear too, obviously.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'd tell you if we had that.
Robbie, I'd also jump in from the certification side of things. Like we've put out open requests to a lot of the community, and I mean, Justin was at the first formative meetings for USPK representing Wolf Puff back in the day, and I think that was something that was like there's been initial offers, and we'd love to have you guys as part of the conversation. And I think just having you guys be present at these meetings is a good first step.
Yeah, just so we're clear, I'm only here as Robbie Corbett. I didn't run it by anybody else. I'm not.
Okay.
Nobody else in any of the other many organizations I work with know that I'm here. So
Okay,
it's just
cool.
me, and that was a personal thing that the person we asked a gym asked another individual to judge. They were super excited, ready, and then it was like 2 days before they said they're not allowed. And
Okay.
I was like, okay, that sounds.
You as an individual are also very welcome. So we open arms here for you, Robbie.
Yeah, appreciate it. You guys all same. Anything I'm ever doing.
Marcus, looks like you have your hand up.
Hi, yeah, I'm Marcus. I'm just wondering when the 2024 calendar is going to be up, because as a event organizer and blah, blah, blah as well, I really want to be able to send people to a unified resource where we just have all this stuff going on in the parkour world across the United States. And I want people to come to my event as well. So when is that calendar going to be live?
Yeah, Marcus, so that calendar is actually live now. I can kind of run you through it as an example. Let me see if I can share my screen. Yeah, so it can be accessed by clicking on events at the very top. And what you'll see here is our events calendar. I brought it up all the way past January as an example.
Okay.
Through all of the little descriptions or links if you're needing a little bit more information. Gives you a little website.
I don't know if I can flip my camera around necessarily, but I feel like I'm looking at the exact same calendar on the website that you are, and on my computer it does not. Up. I lied. No, that's not true. I do see some. I feel like I looked at it in the last couple of days and I couldn't see anything on there, even though I scrolled through. So I just wanted to ask about that, because this is a resource that I want to be able to send people to, especially people that are like traveling around and asking for like what's going on around the country. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's updated continuously. As Cozy is saying, Winter Jam is coming. I think it is January 4th through 6th out in Houston.
Texas Winter Jam is actually January 5th through 7th, and it's going to be in Dallas, Texas, which is a Friday through a Sunday. We're working with local gyms, which include Tempest and Somatic Movement, as well as all sorts of other like local Texas-based and surrounding area organizations. So it's just a classic jam. This is our 16th year. So.
Cool. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, and just to echo, the events calendar is like a collective community project. So it kind of fills as more members or community members submit their events. Many of them aren't annual events, so if they aren't like submitting their items, it doesn't get updated into the calendar. Thanks, Adam. Yes, I see that. And that's because we don't have any of the national dates quite, or any of the competitions or any of the 2024 other events listed. I know that Rendezvous will be probably put on the calendar soon. Women's Gathering and a couple of other events like Obsidian.
And for the competition circuit, I know the regional coordinators are still working on finalizing dates and locations for 2024. So as soon as we have all those in, we will get those up on the calendar also.
An American Rendezvous, June 21st to 23rd. Awesome. All right, it's 3 o'clock. It's been about an hour. Is there any other questions that we may have for us here on the board?
David, looks like you got our last question.
So I have a bit of a personal conundrum that I may not be alone in. So one, my parkour career started after I learned to coach high-level gymnastics, and then it branched out from there. WFPF was my entry point in the parkour community, and then I ended up taking some of the other certifications. And at this point, I was just offered a job as gym director in San Francisco to a gymnastics gym where it was literally like a significantly higher offer than anything in the parkour world. And so I'm caught in the middle, essentially, like through running the Woodward Parkour program for the last 3 years and networking with some of the top athletes in the industry throughout all of the organizations, as well as trying to attend all of the competition events I can. It's been really interesting to like try to be the center point and see what the sport needs, absent of all the loyalties, where everybody, like, I've had the rare privilege of being able to step back and like try to see the bigger picture, because I don't have that much skin in the game. Like, I'm not until now, I wasn't a gym director, I wasn't a business owner, like I didn't have kids, like I was just kind of free floating nomad and could explore, and it was awesome. But so I guess my question now is like, in my loyalty to the parkour community, how do I also coach gymnastics? This gym doesn't have a parkour program, and I'm hesitant to start one because I don't want to do another bastardized version of our sport and like cram it in with like the rest of the gym. And like I don't necessarily want to compete with the other parkour gyms in San Francisco and like, you know, water down the sport and, as Chris said, McDojo. So like, I guess my question is, where do we go from here? And thank you for your time.
I can take that to start on that. I mean, I think the first thing is the fact that like you already recognize the value of having kind of that parkour spirit, and keeping that alive and honoring that and spreading that. I think there are plenty of organizations that partner with gymnastic gyms or other organizations and run high quality programming. But I think it's the place of the values that you bring to that programming that's most important. And the fact that you've done multiple parkour certifications, the fact that you have that expertise and that breadth of experience is really valuable. And I imagine that that can be done in a wide variety of places. Just because it happens in a gymnastics gym doesn't kind of decrease the value. The decrease in value from the parkour perspective happens when it's, as you called it, bastardized parkour. And I think that's the awareness that you have and the experience you sounds like you have. I would have confidence that you wouldn't do that. But I would say being able to join as an organizational member for an organization that is running parkour out of a gymnastics gym, you wouldn't be the first one, but I think that's probably the first step, is being a USPK member from an organizational perspective, making sure that your coaches are getting trained from actual parkour certs, and making sure that you are kind of keeping those values intact.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I'm the situation I walked into is everyone is in their first 6 months of coaching, and it's going to be interesting. So yeah, I definitely need all the support I can get. And if we do start parkour, that's my first priority, to connect it with the broader community. But I guess I'm struggling. So as a background for those of you that probably don't know, a few of the athletes voted me the unofficial U.S. team coach for the FIG competition in Bulgaria in September. And it was strange because we had missed the official deadline to request a coach, and so I went unofficially and was basically caught in a bureaucratic loophole between FIG and USAG, and was being diplomatically told to fuck off at basically every turn. To try to be the coach, I was not allowed to spot. I was not allowed to enter the field of play. I couldn't move mats. I couldn't block off landing zones to keep the athletes safe. I could basically yell, hype, and film, and maybe add tactical advice from afar. And so, like, it's very weird for me now being in a position where I'm like making money off gymnastics, but like I don't play gymnastics. I only desire to train parkour. So it's like, it's a conundrum. And so with like USAG doing us dirty and FIG at basically, well, all levels of gymnastics doing parkour irresponsibly, how do I, like, I'm being torn in all these directions. Like, what do we do here?
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in here. I think that in general, like Blake said, keep the spirit of parkour alive. You know, encourage people to get outdoors and explore their environments, not just what's in the gymnastics gym, as long as they're doing it in a safe and responsible way and are progressing safely. But I also just think that yeah, gymnastics, like the loyalty stuff is just kind of like there. I know it can seem like there's like hard lines between all of these things, but the reality is like all of us are parkour people. And like at the end of the day, maybe this is my personal opinion more than the boards, but just like we're not going to stop anyone from going and trying to like make money. You know, we realize it's tough out there. There's a lot of like it's hard to make money in parkour still. I think that there's plenty of good ways that are kind of coming to fruition and a lot of people that are making it. Um but we're not forbidding anything about that. And I think with USAG specifically, what the biggest thing that I kind of touched on earlier is the fact that for USAG and FIG, maybe they do have good intentions, but the actions kind of speak a little bit louder than words. And something like you just mentioned is kind of a prime example of like it's rules and bureaucracy over safety sometimes. And that's kind of concerning. And I think that anyone from the parkour world is going to recognize that like, yeah, like you should be looking after your athletes, and not just trying to kind of put on a show to take it to the next level. That's part of the reason that we're very focused on the grassroots efforts to kind of like grow what competitive parkour looks like, as well as also, you know, providing those that kind of crossover, because I do think that at the end of the day, it's still movement, right? There are a lot of similarities, but keeping that spirit of parkour in the kids that you're teaching is going to be really important. I know that there's been talk about a couple orgs trying to do almost like an on-ramp or off-ramp for, say, ninja gyms and gymnastics gyms to kind of like give them some basics. But at this point, I don't know that that's developed enough to really kind of like have anything to offer at this point. So that's something we can continue discussions about and see if maybe that makes sense at some point, like I don't know how to else to put it, a PK light for alternate gym spaces. Derek Zoolander's School for Kids Who Can't Read Good, out of something like that. You know, some on ramp program for that. So we'll continue discussions about that. But in the meantime, bring your practice, you know, to wherever you go.
Christopher, yeah, last 2 cents to add in there, it looks like.
Yeah, I totally do. I totally do, dude. David, I freaking love you, man. That's so great. And you can hear, and I'm speaking to the board right now for USPK, like you can hear in the conversational space that there is a deep request of guidance of like what are the indicators of good health, such that if I did put on a parkour program in a different space, in a gymnastics space or wherever, that they would be getting a quality product. They would be getting parkour and not some watered down version of it. And so earlier with my comment about doing violence to that which is not parkour, all that boils down to is really clearly articulating what the indicators of that is. And if it's, you know, and so this is just a comment, it's not even a question, but I would love to see like, yeah, this is what a participant in a parkour program is left with. This is what they are developed in. This is, if I'm someone from the outside looking in, going into a facility, this is what I'm looking for, such that I can see that they're authentic. You know, they're not just calling it parkour, but the spirit of parkour has been dropped like a bunch of times in this conversational space, which is fantastic. But what the heck is that? You know, like we have to articulate it. We have to actually create what that is so that we can express it, so that we can share it, and so that people like David have a literal guide to say, oh, this is what it is not, and this is what it is. And I would love to see if it's not going to come from USPK, where's it going to come from? You know, you guys are it. You guys are the most experienced, powerful people in the United States. You know, this is the group, this is the organization. So I would love to see, you know, I would just love to see that. I love you,
And-
David. That was
and
great.
I think that's a really valuable point. Is one of our roles is to guide the industry as it grows and as it develops. And I think that that's not something. It's not like we're this board of all powerful folks up here. Like, this is a volunteer board, and I think that this takes people that are passionate and people that have some time that they're willing to commit to it. And we're always looking for more volunteers and more board members. So I'd say, if this is, as Christopher was saying, like, this is going to take some guidance. This is going to take people to help steward our industry and our community, and this is an active role. And so if that's something that you feel strongly about, like, reach out to us. We'll put our contact information in the chat. We'll also, when we put this out, we'll put our contact information on there so that you can reach out and ask for that guidance, and also hopefully guide the next generation, because this is a process that's continually happening, and we need people that are passionate about it.
Awesome. We'll take one last question, Marcus.
Not quite a question, but similar to comment to Chris's. Though I would say that the people in this meeting here, obviously USPK and the volunteers that are on the boards are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but I think everybody in this meeting here should consider themselves a leader and be helping with the work of defining what it is that we do as a practice. Because I think it's a little bit different for everybody, and it will take more than just a select small group of people to make that definition. So I think the more that we can get people together, I think the more that we as individuals can act as good examples in leadership. And then with organizations and through organizations like USPK, the more that we can compile that information and use it, just in a way that acts as a larger representation of the community. I think we should all take a little bit of ownership and responsibility as much as possible. And if possible, a lot of responsibility and a lot of ownership, and do as much as we can. So if you came to this meeting and you're listening, then it's obviously important to you. So I challenge everybody to take that responsibility and ownership, because I think that is part of the parkour spirit as well, if I were to put in my 2 cents. But I love you all.
Thanks, Marcus. All right, so I think that concludes our time here for today. Want to thank you all one more time for joining us for our winter town hall. Any board members have any last items before we kind of close it?
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, if you didn't get a chance, if you hopped on sort of mid conversation or at the questions point, this is being recorded. So stay tuned on our website and social media to see the full presentation.
Hey, thank you guys so much. It's been a privilege. You're doing great. I appreciate everything you do. Let me know how I can help.
Thanks, David.
Good to see you guys. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. We're going to wrap up, and we'll see you all online or in person.